Time now for our Rants and Raves, starting with Callie.
Well, I am raving about a very special project at speaking of the New York Times. The New York Times Magazine is all about the landing of, in 1619, of the 20 to 30 enslaved people, and looking forward from there, the impact. So Hannah Nicole Jones, who's been writing these very long takeouts, she won a MacArthur, she's a very good journalist, decided to take this on and say, let's start at the moment, because clearly from everything that's going on in our discussion and our discourse now really brings up again that we have no understanding of the impact of that history then or now. So they gave up a lot of space with many voices that did a lot of reporting work to write about it. It's this Sunday, yeah.
Look forward to that. Yeah. Who's up? Adam.
I think it's me. I have a rant for CNN's Chris Cuomo, who recently was accosted by, I want to use words I can't use on air as I often do, accosted by a big jerk who got Chris Cuomo all hot under the collar by calling him Fredo. Let's take a look.
And they use it as an Italian aspersion. Any of you Italian? Are you Italian? It's a f***ing insult to your people. It's an insult to your people. It's like the N-word for us.
I do not blame Chris Cuomo for getting ticked off that this guy, who was basically a right-wing provocateur, went up to him and was a jerk to him. I understand getting angry.
And holding the phone down the whole time to record.
Right, having the phone down to record, of course. I do think that claiming that Fredo is the equivalent of the N-word as a white person, I don't want to claim that anything is the equivalent of the N-word. So I think
Don't we have the Fredo clip too?
He went a little too far. Of course, as discerning viewers know, as all of us know, Fredo is actually a reference to The Godfather, where there's one really smart brother and one kind of dumb brother who we can watch in action.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
We all want respect, but that's Fredo.
Yeah,
let's not make too much of it.
I don't know. I thought that Chris Cuomo really was acting like a child.
Oh, I couldn't believe how...
I thought it was embarrassing for him, and I thought he just sank to that level. And
I can see popping
Well,
off.
he said he did.
It went on and on and on and on.
He admitted it. Yeah, he went on and on and on.
Yeah.
I think Ron Burgundy had a better idea. Have a sword fight. You know, I mean, that would have been more effective.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
All right, so I have a rant for Bernie Sanders, who's the Vermont senator, of course, running for president, and his new newsletter called Burn Notice, B-E-R-N Notice. And there it is, and you can sign up by going online. And this is because he's been unhappy with the Washington Post's coverage of his campaign. He's whining about the coverage. He doesn't like it. He's done this many times before about coverage. And so what he's trying to do is come up with this newsletter which has, he thinks, nuggets and scoops and real news for journalists and everybody else to see. So he's unhappy with the Post, so he's going to do the same thing, I think, in a way, that President Trump is doing by tweeting and circumventing the press. He doesn't like what's being written about him, so I'm going to start my own little font of information here, and it's the Burn Notice.
Marty Barron, the editor of Post, did address it.
It did address it and basically said, no.
You're like everybody else. Nobody likes their coverage.
Nobody likes their coverage. Yeah, it's part of the problem with our president. He can't understand, and Bernie Sanders, the difference between unfair, unfavorable, and inaccurate coverage. He thinks they're all fake news, and there is a difference.
All right, Roy.
I have a rave for the Boston Globe and the way that they've been covering General Electric, which was big in the news again this week. They have a very seasoned reporter and editor, business editor, John Chesto, on the case. And the story that came up this week was a pretty major scandal about Harry Markopolos, who is the guy who kind of made Bernie Madoff and the Ponzi scheme a household word. And so when Harry Markopolos came out with this study showing that GE was playing games with their finances, it became a big story, $38 billion problem. And John Chesto just did a really good job of covering it. Talked to professors locally.
John Chesto was fantastic.
Yeah, excellent report.
All right, well, finally, I have a rant tonight for Random House. So this is kind of interesting. A couple years ago, they were in a book deal with Maggie Haberman and Glenn Thrush from the New York Times. The two of them were going to write a book together. Glenn Thrush, as you recall, got swept up in the Me Too movement and got demoted at the Times and shifted around, but he kept his job. They canceled the book deal and told Thrush that he was off the deal. So they had to pay him the advance. Maggie Haberman had to give hers back because she decided not to do. It's just a matter. It was all legal, but it's just the way it's perceived. It's like they should have made out some deal where they paid each of them something.
Did Glenn Thrush split it with
No.
Maggie Haberman?
No, he took it. They fired him off the deal, so he got to keep the advance. She backed off of it because once she didn't have a co-writer. But they should. It's just the perception, you know,
Yep.
that the girl doesn't get the money.